When I first met you, I just loved you. I thought about you all the time. When you walked out of the room, I was heartbroken. Now, I don't care if you go or come. I was like, it's like, whatever. I fell out of love. You must have did something. And I need to move on.
So were they really in love to begin with?
They were in love with love. They were in love with the passionate stage. Everybody, it's a great feeling. It is. But if you're using people for the high, it's wrong. If you're using people for the high, and that's what you expect out of marriage, you will become dissatisfied with your mate. And do you want somebody who is going to be dissatisfied with you at the 4-year mark? And that is why this is a red flag. If they have used love this way, if this is the way they've lived their life, what makes you think that they are going to be satisfied with you when they are no longer being given those chemicals? Okay. Now, what is that stage? That people that are successful in marriage, people who remain marriage for years and remain friends and enjoy each other's company and love one another continually and maintain commitment to one another, these are individuals who make that transition so that when the mystique is gone, when the novelty is over, they still have something, and they have it because what is growing is intimacy and commitment. Okay, intimacy is again trust, transparency. It's knowing, learning your mate and doing good for your mate, and being on their team, being a cheerleader for that person, being down when they're down and up when they're up, being supportive there and there for them, and talking regularly, agreeing with on basic things like morality and so forth. And when you experience life together, these things grow together to where you become mates. You really do become mates. And as that relationship solidifies, the libido comes along and is enhanced. And so you end up with a new kind of relationship. But it is not the same as during the passionate state. It is not the same as when you were infatuated with them.
Isn't it just plain maturity of the relationship?
I think that minimizes the complexity of the human brain to say just plain. No,
well,
it requires
even
thinking.
The brain chemistry matures.
Not necessarily. No, absolutely not necessarily.
Through development.
There is will involved here, and I think that's where, see, this is character issues, and that's why, this is not really a program about what to look for, but I think we have to talk about that, is that character matters. Is this somebody, do they have long-term friends? What do they do when they've known, do they have friends that they love and have known for years? Or do they have a lot of broken relationships to where people can't stand them after a while? Or did they start to hate people that they know because they won't loan them money or something stupid like that? I mean, is this somebody who has the ability to maintain long-term friendships? Okay, if they do, that's a good sign. If they've done it there, they can do it here. Okay, and the same thing we need to ask of ourselves: what are our relationships like? Do we always, when things go sour, do we give up on people and start? Do we have an inner circle of mature individuals, or is everyone out getting high and getting drunk and messing up?
What makes one relationship different from the other when you're talking about the same kind of brain chemistry? What makes the relationships different? What makes one relationship more stable than another relationship when, again, you're generally speaking of brain chemistry?
That's a very good question. There's a good saying, it takes two to make a marriage, it takes one to make a divorce. And that's why this is to talk about red flags. You should memorize this. It takes two to make a marriage, one to make a divorce. The worst mistake you can make is poor mate selection. That's the worst. You pick somebody who does not have the ability to transition from passionate to companionate love, then they're not going to make it.
At what point is there divine spiritual inspiration that accompanies a healthy, strong, durable relationship?
Well, I think there are a couple of things here that touches on. Obviously, the God that designed our brains, our souls, designed the whole picture and how it's supposed to work together.
Because if this is universal,
yeah,
then
it
we're
is
speaking
universal.
of people also who does not believe in a supreme being.
This is not about, I think that it's like this. It's like morality works whether you give credit to God or not. It works. I mean, the reason that, the reason in the Bible, when we have various commands, I think one thing that's come to light is that the commands are there to protect us and to provide for us. If we obey them, we get the benefits. And there are individuals who don't subscribe to any particular religion, but if they live like it, if they follow those rules, if they are faithful to their spouses, if they do behaviors that are supportive and are willing to do self-sacrifice for their mates, they get the advantage of a pretty good relationship if both of them are doing that.
Right.
All it takes is one party to step out and do something really foolish.
Right.
Okay. So I mean, they can have that. I think that's a bigger talk as to, okay, what is the exact contribution of your spirituality? It's huge. I mean, certainly if you have a divine mission together, that enhances the intimacy substantially.
Right.
If you're acting out on that. If you are drawn apart by if there are petty insecurities in the relationship in either partner, well, that's going to detract. I mean, regardless of what you say your religion is, if we allow our selfish drives to get in the way, it's going to cause problems, you know. But character matters a lot. Character matters a lot. Does this individual have the ability to do self-sacrificial love? In the Bible, the word is agape. It's divine and self-sacrificial love. And I think that really, at some point, that feeds into our ability to do commitment, and that's where your spirituality really comes home. Is that if I believe that I have made this commitment before God, then it is more likely that I will stand by my spouse, even though they're sick, even though they're going through a hard time, that I'm going to be there regardless because I made the commitment and it's on me, and I will do this, even if I'm not getting a lot from that individual. So that's where this comes to play. Okay, but character matters a great deal in this. And the people who are successful, relationships that are successful, involve two individuals who have the fortitude to remain committed. Now, just because people stay together doesn't mean it's going to be a happy union.
Right.
Okay, you can stay together and be committed for the sake of the kids or whatever, and have it be an empty love relationship where there's no intimacy there, and there's really no passion at all, and people do that. But I think in order to maintain those two, it's almost always you have a couple that have chosen to do the work. Okay, to make it happen. And those red flags, if the red flag of promiscuity, if you've got one partner who's really been a part of the pornographic world and had it right up until they got married, chances are very poor that they're going to be able to transition. Okay, if you have somebody who is a hothead, people who are hotheads, they're always pulling knives. I don't mean literally pulling knives, but they are always saying things that are so demeaning and so destructive that you can't trust them because they're hurting you all the time. Or part of transparency is being willing to show you my back, knowing you're not going to stab me, man. You know, and if you're always hitting me and stabbing me, you know, verbally or physically, I can't trust you. There's going to be no intimacy there, and that's why that's a red flag. I need to be able to trust you. Okay? And with regard to the hatred, with regard to the holding grudges, if they're doing it to other people before you get married, I guarantee they're going to do it to you. That's a huge thing. If you got somebody who always has to blame somebody, every time something happens, somebody's got to be the blame, and they got to vent their anger.
We're talking about singlehood, really, because if you're looking for a long-term partner, you're single. You're living a lifestyle as a single person. That means you're legally unattached. You're not separated. You are actually in the position to partner with another person.
We talked about what does it mean to be fulfilled. Enough love and belonging, enough purpose, enough respect, including self-respect, enough freedom from excessive manipulation, enough hope of positive emotion. As we grow as individuals in all ways and we find that fulfillment, we become better potential marriage partners. That's something that people need to pursue. Book of Romans, God says that morality is built into our hearts. Apparently, we're now there to where we're able to recognize that in the 21st century. Yes, all along, it's built in. We know when we're bad. What happens, though, is that we get used to using our innate moral code to judge other people. Okay, but when it comes to us, we cross the line, but we have an excuse. That's a defense mechanism. You know, I only called you a blinkety blank blank because you did this. If you had behaved morally, I wouldn't have had to resort to that. So yes, I crossed a line, but there were special circumstances. People who habitually use defense mechanisms to explain away bad behavior don't grow. And as a result, when it comes to relationships, you need somebody, in a marriage relationship, you want somebody with the ability to grow. Excessive use of defense mechanisms to keep their red flags is not acceptable.
Hopefully, through the design of this particular topic in this show, the other person will be able to recognize it in that person and help them by pulling back.
Yes.